Yo, what's poppin'? Welcome back to Bhroman Braapsody. This is where we review cars and motorcycles. We are back again at Indian Motorcycle Greensboro with Monty Hendricks, the owner.
Hey, what's up, guys?
And today we have the 2022 Indian Super Chief.
Yes.
And in today's episode, we're going to talk about this bike, take it out for a spin, get my thoughts on it, talk about the cost of ownership, and assign it a Bhromance score. So don't go anywhere. I'll see you soon. It's your boy Bro, and I am your Broman.
Well, this is new in the Indian lineup. Brand new model. They're just starting to hit showrooms. This is the Super Chief. The nice thing about the Super Chief, it comes already equipped with the windshield. It already has the bags. It has the passenger pillion, and it also already has the passenger pegs. So with the Super Chief, it is also running the Thunderstoke 111 engine. Traditionally, the 111 Thunderstoke in the previous bikes have had 119 foot-pounds of torque. In this configuration, it's 108 foot-pounds of torque. Extremely strong for a bike that only weighs 714 pounds dry.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because that was going to be my next point. That although it's putting out less power,
Right.
This bike weighs a lot less.
Correct. And the nice thing, you're still going to peak that torque out at 3,200 RPM, so it's going to get there quick. And I'm sure that we can kick that power up for you with a set of cams, breather, exhaust, the whole package.
So you can do the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 kit.
Absolutely.
And since it's a 111, the stage 3 is the big bore kit, right? So you get
Yeah.
the 116 basically.
That's right. You can still run all the way up to the big bore kit with and put the 116 in it. Yeah, 100%.
And so this is Indian's brand new motorcycle, their brand new offering, the Chief lineup. And there are 6 models, right?
Correct.
3 with the 111s and 3 with the 116s.
Correct.
So you have the Indian Chief, the Indian Chief Bobber, and the Super Chief. Those are the 111s.
Yes.
And then you have the dark horses for the Chief and the Bobber for the 116s.
Right.
And then you have a Super Chief Limited. I think there's another couple of differences, right? This does not get the ride command center that you would get on the 116s.
Correct. Yeah, with the 116, those bikes are going to have the ride command, the basic ride command system. And there's some cool features to that. But for a lot of folks, one of the things that's appealing to this bike, especially if they've been maybe looking at a Scout, but the Scout was a little small, or maybe they're coming off a Scout and they're looking to go to a little bit bigger bike. Traditional gauges and so forth, it's a little bit raw. They're looking just to get out and ride. They love the engine, the transmission, and the size of the bike, and that's not a big selling point.
Big selling point, yeah.
But for other people, they see the smaller ride command system, they got to have it. We're really going to have 3 type of customers that I think are going to show a deep interest in the Chief model. We're going to have folks that are coming in that have maybe already had, like I said, Scouts, and they're saying, I'm ready to move to something that's a little bit bigger bike. This is going to fit that bill. Mm-hmm. We're also going to have customers that, for whatever reason, they've been on a bigger bike. They decide they want to go to something that's a little bit lighter weight, a little bit smaller, lighter weight, and for them that might be something that's a little bit more manageable per se. For whatever reason, they might want to come down to this weight. And then there's going to be other folks that this is just the size bike right out of the gate that they want. The cool thing is it does already have the bob fenders. We know that's a very popular look right now. But also, if you go back through the history of Indian motorcycles, the smaller fenders were on a lot of models. We often think in the history books about the big balance fenders, but that was really more just on the big Chiefs. And I think maybe the Sport Scout for a couple of years had them. But for the most part, most of the Indian motorcycles through the history books have the smaller fenders, and they were known for being well balanced, which this bike is, and having good, strong power to weight ratio, and just being great handling bikes. And this fits the bill, it fits right in with our history.
And you touched on the history. So this is the 100th anniversary of the Indian Chief. It first came out in 1922, right? So this is the 100th year anniversary bike. And what Indian did was, instead of going the old route and having it look like a vintage bike, they completely redesigned it from the ground up.
Yes. Well, that's critical because we have to, there's 2 ways that with a historical brand that you can go. You can go back and say, hey, let's do a homage or a reproduction. Or you can also say, hey, listen, if the Chief had been in production all 100 years, where would it be in 2022?
Yeah.
I think this is it. I think people are going to dig this. I think it's going to be a great bike for the household, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think so too, because this is that perfect spot between your scouts and your regular tourers, your chieftains and roadmasters and whatnot.
Well, I'll tell you what's been exciting for me is that we've had small people, tall people, young people, older people, men and women both coming in wanting to see the Chief. And I just think, hey man, this is the darling of the whole lineup.
It is, and it's a brand new offering, and it's so beautiful. Of course it's the darling, come on now.
Right on.
And this has a shorter wheelbase than the other models too, right? This has a 64-inch wheelbase?
Correct. Yes, 64-inch wheelbase, and like I say, it still has a really good footprint. Large tires, but they're not overdone. They're not going to be something that's going to be unmanageable for the handling. It's a very secure bike. When you get on it, if you're ripping down the highway and a big truck comes by you, you don't feel like you're being blown around. It's got a low center of gravity. It's very, very balanced. You know, I just feel like that they really hit the nail on the head with this.
Now that you talked about the tires, this does not have the Metzler Cruise Techs like the other bikes, right? This has the Pirelli tires?
Yeah, it's got the Pirellis, and I tell you right out of the box, I think it doesn't matter whether you live out in the flats of Texas or if you live here in North Carolina right off the Parkway and close to the tail of the Dragon, this bad boy right out of the box is a fun bike. And if you're into ripping through the canyon and the handling, we got you covered. If you're into long cruising, we got you covered. This bike I just think it's going to be a great bike. And I think we're going to see a lot of people purchasing this. It's their only bike. We're going to see some people purchase it, says it's their first bike. Some people purchase it, it's going to be their last bike. And I think that we're going to have a lot of people purchasing it as a second bike in the garage.
We spoke about the paint quality. Remember when we did the Scout 60?
Right.
Same thing here. You have flakes in the paint.
Yeah, the Indian Motorcycle Company has done a great job with their paint.
Now, I think a lot of folks will ask this question, since this is a new bike.
Right.
How are the accessories for this bike?
Man, let me tell you, we already got a whole catalog of stuff that's available. And here's the thing, and customers should definitely take note of this. We know that because we can already get the bike from the factory with the critical accessories. So obviously, because this one already comes from the factory with these items, of course you know that windshields are available, passenger seats are available, saddlebags are available, passenger pegs are available. And I think that straight up, this bike is going to be a hit, it's going to be popular, and I think the aftermarket world is going to get a hold of this and take off. So there's going to be so much stuff available for this bike over probably the next year that's just going to blow your mind.
Even if you don't want to go aftermarket, let's say you want to stick with the Indian products, remember there are 6 models of this bike, and each has a little nuance to it, like the Dark Horses and the Bobbers have those ape hangers.
Right.
So I'm assuming you can get those accessories on this?
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. And of course, you know, if you're taller or shorter, extended and reduced reach controls and extended and reduced reach bars, all of these things, we can really custom fit this bike up to you. I mean, just like an expensive pair of shoes, man.
Yeah. Hey, if you're buying one of these, that's the beauty of buying a motorcycle, right? You want to make it your own. So whatever speaks to you, however it speaks to you, that's how it should be.
Agreed.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about Indian Greensboro?
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, Indian Greensboro, we're an old school motorcycle dealership. We specialize in Indian motorcycles. We do also sell a Polaris Slingshot, but 95% of our sales are Indian motorcycles. We were one of the first Indian motorcycle dealers under Polaris in the U.S. Well, I guess you could say worldwide now. Also on April 20th and 21st, which is Tuesday and Wednesday of this year, 2022, we're going to have the Indian demo truck here that Tuesday and Wednesday, the 20th and 21st of April. It's the gooseneck smaller trailer, but there's going to be, I believe, 9 new Indians on there, including the Chief, Challenger, the FTR Carbon. Come down here and visit us, 201 South Church Street, in historic downtown Greensboro, zip 27401. And join in with us. We'll be running bike rides that day from around 10:30 a.m. until around 4:30 p.m.
Yeah. And I'll put all of that information in the video description below. I'll put the website in the video description below. There's a demo ride. Come check it out. And hey, if you come down to the Indian Motorcycle Greensboro, just tell them the Bhromance sent you.
Absolutely. Bhromance sent you.
All right, so that's a lot of good info. Thank you so much, Monty.
Very welcome.
Do you happen to have the time? My watch is stuck.
Yeah, man, it's right o'clock. Get out of here.
All right, right o'clock. Let's go. On the front, the spokes on the wheels look beautiful. It just looks nostalgic, and I love it. It's so cool. This bike comes with single discs up front, and this has a 29-degree rake angle. Well, what's the rake angle, you ask? Well, if you draw a perpendicular from the steering mount and then follow the fork tube. That angle is the rake angle. Shorter the rake angle, the more nimble the bike is, and larger the rake angle, the more stable the bike is at higher speeds and such. At the heart of the bike is the 111 Thunderstoke engine that puts out about 108 foot-pound of torque for the Super Chief. You have the beautiful Indian logo on the side, and if you look at the paint, you see those little flakes, those little shiny little spots in the paint. That's that amazing paint quality of Indian. On the sides, you have this little pigtail outlet. You can use this to plug in your heated gear, cell phone charger, or even your trickle charger. If you want to leave the bike in the garage for a long amount of time, just plug it into a trickle charger and the battery won't die. And then you have a nice rider seat and a nice passenger seat. You have the exhaust stacked on one on top of the other on your right side. You can see the belt from here. It's got two saddlebags, and those two are your turn signals and your tail lights. This is a funny part about all of these Indian motorcycles. They come with this oh shit handle. Looks cool. As for the saddlebags, they are not the biggest saddlebags. They have a decent amount of space. You probably couldn't get a lot of stuff in here. A few bottles of water, a jacket, and things like that. And the key fob is so cool. You have the Indian headrest logo on one side, and it says Indian on the other side. This is cool. This looks like a car key fob. It does not have the ride command center here. What it has is this more traditional analog display. That's your speedometer, and you have lights here for high beam, air messages, left turn signal, ABS, neutral, tire pressure, right turn signal, check engine light, and the kickstand light. I like this. This is a very narrow tank. It's a 4-gallon tank. It's quite narrow. It does not have the two fuel caps. It just has one. And in the middle, it has the big eye, which is I for Indian. I have seen these mirrors on every Indian motorcycle. Looks very beautiful. On your left-hand side, you have your horn, high beams, passing lights, turn signals, and hazards. And on your right-hand side, you have the power button and the kill switch, start, stop, and cruise control. And on top you have a trigger, and you have the trigger on both sides. Just because it's an analog display does not mean you don't get other tech features. Just like the Scout and the Vintage, you get a lot of cool stuff in here. It tells you what gear you're on. This is the trip 1 meter, and you have the fuel gauge on top. And if you pull the trigger on the left hand side, it'll toggle. That's your electronic tachometer. We're stopped now, so it's at 0. Then you have your voltmeter, outside temperature, that's your fuel economy, and your fuel range. Now if you pull the trigger on the right hand side, it goes to your ride modes, and if you press and hold it, it goes into the ride modes that you can select. So now it's at sport, press it again, standard, press it again, you go into touring mode. Press and hold it again, it'll go back to that main screen. Tap the button again, you go into cylinder deactivation, press and hold the right trigger, it'll go to on, tap it once, off, tap it once, on. And on the front you have those LED headlamps. That's so cool. Let's make a couple of U-turns and see how good this is. Huh. This is so well balanced and it's so light. This is awesome. This is really well balanced and this is beautiful. Well, time for our second test. This is the pull test. So for that, let me go ahead and put it in sport mode. Woo! Yeah, the 111 does put out what, 108 pound-feet of torque, but this bike weighs only 700 pounds, so it's got a nice kick to it. You can have a lot of stupid fun. And look at this. This is so well balanced, and you can just flick it around all day. Well, I'm about 5'10" with a 31-inch inseam. My legs I'm pretty comfortable here. My legs are bent weirdly. Now this has This has the mid controls. I think you would like to have the forward controls on this bike. And this has a 26-inch seat height, and I can flat foot it on both sides very easily. This bike is staying upright, and it's very well balanced. It's not leaning one way or the other. The seat is quite comfy. It's got a decent amount of padding to it. It's comfy, and I have this big windshield here, so that blocks most of the wind. I am getting some wind in my arms and legs, but that's to be expected. It doesn't have the other kinds of wind protection. I'm gonna put it back in touring mode. There you go. So if I put it back in touring mode, it just the throttle response is not as direct as it was in sport mode, but it's still good. See these handlebars? I love these handlebars. They are pulled back towards me, and yeah, my arms are nice, relaxed. I'm not going crazy. And making these turns, this bike loves to lean, huh? This is a good bike, man. I like it. Can you use this bike to go commuting? Yes, you can. This is plenty powerful, and this is not super heavy. The saddlebags are a little smaller, but that's enough for you to get a laptop and a couple of other stuff in there. So you could use this for commuting, no doubt. And this ride is nice. I love the ride. It's comfortable. These bumps, I'm not feeling these bumps on the road. It's eating them up pretty nicely. Could you use this bike to go touring or touring long distances? Well, you probably could. You can cruise long distances, you can ride it on the highway, but going touring on this is probably not the best bet. I mean, people will do it, and you can do it, and it's not a good idea because it does not have a lot of storage space. You don't have a trunk, and you don't have a fairing and wind protection and things like that. But it's quite comfy. I mean, this is a good fun bike to drive around at. But I'm doing 45 miles an hour, and it's just chugging along perfectly. No drama, no nothing. It's just chugging along. This feels a little bigger than the Indian Scout, and that's what it's meant to be. It's going to plug you in that space between the Scout and, let's say, a Chieftain or the Springfield and the touring motorcycles. So this is that mid-size cruiser. Between the sport mode and the touring and standard modes, I think sport mode is the most aggressive one. The throttle response is the most aggressive in sport mode. In touring and standard, it's very docile, and it's very calm and composed of sorts. Sport mode is where it wants to go. It just wants to go. These bikes, the Indian Chief lineup starts at about $15,000, and it goes all the way up to 21, I think, based on the different trim levels of the bikes. So you could, depending upon what you want, what configuration do you want the 111, the 116, you could go you could be somewhere in the $15,000 to $21,000 range. As with all Indian motorcycles, you have tons of accessories from Indian. Now the aftermarket is catching up to Indian motorcycles, and you're starting to see more and more aftermarket parts. But there are a ton of options you can get for this bike. If you want a power upgrade, go with the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 kit. If it's a 111, you have the stage 3 kit, and if it's a 116, you have a stage 1 and stage 2. There is no stage 3 for the 116. This is an air-cooled bike. This is not a liquid-cooled bike, and the reason for that was that putting a liquid-cooled engine in there meant you'd have to put a big radiator, and that would take away from the aesthetics of this bike. CU Indian decided to go with air-cooled engine. Now this engine might get a little hot as with most air-cooled engines. If you're stuck in traffic and stop-and-go traffic, it will get a little hot, but as long as you're moving, it's not bad. So it's 86 degrees today, and it's really sunny, so it's hot. but so far I don't feel any heat or anything as such. Yeah, so is this a good bike for beginners? Well, I think so, because this bike has those riding modes. You can turn them down. If you put it in standard and touring mode, it's gonna be very easy to handle and maneuver, and if you put it in sport mode, it'll go crazy. This does not weigh, the weight of this bike isn't crazy either. So yeah, all in all, it should be a good beginner bike. And the best part about this bike is you can grow with the bike. As you gain more riding experience, you can grow with the bike, and it's got a big power curve, so you can grow with it and not have to change bikes in a year or two. So yeah, this could be a good beginner bike. Well guys, keep your knees in the breeze. I'm gonna keep riding this bike, so why don't y'all head back to the punk and wrap up this video. So let's talk about the cost of ownership for the 2022 Indian Super Chief. Now, as with most Indian motorcycles, this requires a service every 5,000 miles, and the basic service cost for this at your local Indian dealer is going to be about $260. And as for the tires, it has the Pirelli Night Dragons, and the set of these tires should last you about 10,000 miles, and they should cost you about $500. So over a 2-year period, you would need 2 services, so that's $260 a pop, $520, and a set of new tires, which is $500. So that brings your total to $1,020 over 2 years. Divided by the number of days, it's about $1.4 a day. So the Indian Super Chief has that old school bagger look to it, with the custom fenders, the chopped fenders, the bob fenders, whatever you might want to call it. The one I reviewed had the 111, the Thunderstoke 111. It also comes with a 116 with the Super Chief Limited. It has a good amount of torque and power to it. It's very comfortable. It looks cool. It looks badass. It's a mid-size cruiser, but it's comfy, it's nimble, it's light. Is the Super Chief the bike for you? Well, go out to your closest Indian dealer and take this out for a spin and see what you think about it. Let's assign it a score, shall we? On the looks, it's an 8 out of 10. On the Braap, it's an 8 out of 10. On the maintenance, it's an 8 out of 10. And on the comfort, it's an 8 out of 10. For a combined Bhromance score of 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching.